Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today I'm talking about lead boosts and why I think almost any lead guitar player should have one in their rig. I'm going to be using my Line 6 Helix to demonstrate different ways of accomplishing this and the pros and cons of the different methods. However, this applies to any kind of rig, whether it's all analog, all digital, or some kind of hybrid rig. These concepts work the same across the board. And again, I think unless you have a really good sound guy you can count on, I think every lead guitar player should have something in their rig that works as a lead boost. So we're going to hop over to HX Edit. I'm going to show you the different methods that you can use. Before I do that, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Also, if you are a Helix or a Variax user, there will be a link in the description below to the presets that I have on the Line 6 Marketplace. If you are interested in those, it's a great way to support the channel. So thanks for checking those out. Let's hop over to HX Edit and take a look. Okay, so here we are in HX Edit, and we're going to be looking at different ways to accomplish a lead boost. If you're not familiar, basically a lead boost is where if you're the lead guitar player in a band, during the rhythm sections, verses, choruses, you want to fit in the mix of the band. You don't want to overpower the band. However, when it comes time to do the lead, you want to bump up and stand out a bit. Particularly if there's another guitar player in the band, if you don't increase your volume and go to play a lead, very likely it's going to kind of get lost in the mix, because it's not going to rise up and be above the other guitar player, the bass player, the drums, keyboard, whatever you have going on. Now, in a lot of bands, especially as bigger bands that have more production, you have a sound guy that knows how to do this. But for most of us mere mortals, it's very handy to be able to control this on our own. So I'm going to show you a few methods in Helix because it's super easy to do in Helix, but a lot of these can be translated easily into the analog world. Now, the first way I'm going to show you is kind of specific if you're using some type of digital modeler, because I'm just going to be controlling the channel volume on the amp model itself. If you're using a real amp, this would basically mean you have to, reach back and turn up the amp volume, which is not feasible. But, since this is one way to do it in Helix, I'm just going to walk you through this as well as several others. So what I have basically is the channel volume being controlled by a foot switch. And when we look at the details, the minimum value, meaning the foot switch off, is 4. And then when the foot switch is on, the maximum value is 6. That's going to give us a nice boost. It's just going to be pure volume boost. The tone won't change at all. It's just volume. So this is without the volume boost and with the volume boost. So if you're playing lead, quite simple. It just makes it louder. So that's, that accomplishes the goal. Very, very easy to do. Some presets I've built, it depends on the amp model I'm using. A lot of times the channel volume is not always maxed out, but a lot higher. So in some patches, I may not have enough room left on the channel volume slider to set a big enough, volume jump to make that work. So here's some other ways. Again, keeping with things that are pertaining to Helix or where you have digital control over parameters. Coming to the output block, the level. So I have this assigned to a foot switch, and basically we're getting 3 decibels of boost. The minimum level, meaning foot switch off, is at 0. When it's on, it's 3 decibels of boost. Basically, the same thing applies. So those are 2 ways, in Helix specifically, or any kind of digital modeler, you can easily accomplish that by assigning your output level to a foot switch. Now, let me look at some ways that you could do this in the analog world as well as the digital. One way is actually using a volume pedal. If your volume pedal, well, you can do this with any volume pedal, but some have, like a lot of the Boss volume pedals, have an adjustment on it where you can set the minimum value. So what I've done here is I have a volume pedal, and I have the value. Let me get to the right thing I'm looking for here. So when the heel is all the way back, when it's in the heel position, it's 70%, and then all the way forward, it's 100%. So basically, if I'm playing with it heel down, so you can hear, the volume jump. If you're going to use this method, a couple of tips. Dial your sound in with the volume pedal heel down. So that way you don't get your patch just the way you want it. And when you use this volume pedal technique, you're just kind of backing and making it quieter and then getting it back up to kind of baseline volume. You want to set your baseline volume with the heel down, so when you push it forward, you have somewhere to go. Also, if you're going to use this as just a clean boost or lead boost, I would recommend putting the volume pedal after the amp. If you're running an analog system, that would mean probably putting it in the effects loop of the amplifier. That way, otherwise, what happens if it's in front of the amp model or in front of your real amp? You're basically just adjusting the level of signal or input going into the front of the amp. So you're not going to get a clean volume boost. You're basically just going to, push the amp harder. If it's a clean, very clean amp, you may get a volume boost. But if it's an amp that's breaking up, if you increase the signal going in, you're probably just going to kind of distort the amp a little more, which is not a bad thing at all. But for the sake of this example, that's not what we're trying to accomplish. But that is another way to do it. The next way is to simply have, in Helix, it's called a gain block. You could do this in the analog world with any number of boost pedals, clean boost pedals, an EQ pedal. You could get an EQ pedal and leave it flat and just turn the level up. That's essentially all we're doing here. There's just no EQ built into this block. It's just purely a gain block. So again, same kind of thing. All these methods so far we've looked at are all accomplishing the same things, just different ways of doing it to give you options. The last way I'm going to look at, which is my personal favorite, is to use an EQ block. As I just spoke about in the analog world, you could use an EQ pedal for this. The reason this is my favorite is it gives me some control over the frequencies that are getting boosted. It's not just boosting the volume level. As you can see, I'm boosting, basically around 2.2K and then 750 Hertz. So I'm getting, that middle section of the frequency spectrum is where the guitar lives. Bass is the low end. You've got some cymbals and hi-hats and stuff on the higher end. Keyboard's more full range, but the guitar pretty much lives right there in the mid-range section of the audio spectrum. So this way, not only am I going to get a volume boost, I'm also going to get particular frequencies pushed forward. So it doesn't necessarily have to increase as much volume to get the effect of standing out. But even if you do the same amount of volume, it's going to stand out even more because you're pushing those frequencies that are going to be heard over, the other instruments. All the other methods we've looked at is just taking your volume and doing this, where this is going to take your volume. And, if you think about it, if our baseline tone is flat, when we go up with this, it's going to cause a hump in the in equalization as well. So here's what that sounds like. So that's the way I personally like to do it. Easily accomplished with an EQ pedal if you're not using a digital modeler, and you can fine tune it. You can dial it in. I happen to be using the model of the Mesa. I think it's off the Mark IV, the 5-band EQ. Doesn't matter. Boss has a very basic EQ pedal that a lot of guitar players use for this sort of thing. And EQ pedals are great too in front of the amp. If you want to push the amp into more overdrive, you can put one in front for that. You can put one after for just a pure lead boost. So, again, this is a pretty simple concept, but I do hear people asking about this and, trying to figure out the best way to accomplish a lead boost and stand out when they go to take leads. I've done all this. The example is just in a very clean amp. Depending on your amp sound, if you're, typically if you're doing leads, a lot of the times you're going to be distorted. So when you already have a distorted compressed signal, boosting these mid frequencies are going to help you stand out even more than just hearing it on off in a clean situation. But you do hear the difference, or at least I can hear the difference between all these just straight clean boosts and then using the EQ with a certain frequencies boosted as your lead boost. So I hope this is helpful. Essentially I just was showing you several ways of accomplishing the same thing. You wouldn't do all this in one preset. It would be redundant, but hopefully this has given you some insight and ideas. If you are, if you're in a band and struggling to stand out, whenever it's your time to take a lead. I know in the very beginning when I started gigging out, you know, I was young and didn't know what I was doing really. I knew how to play, but this was all new to me with, you know, band setting and you know, they were like, well, you're kind of getting lost when you go to leads. And I'm like, I don't know, you know, I don't know what to do. So, you know, years went by, well, not years to learn this, but as the years went by, you just get more accustomed to learning the little tips and tricks and that sort of thing. So hopefully this will shortcut that for some of you guys. If you have questions about it, any other questions or anything I missed, feel free to put those in the comments below, and I'll be happy to do my best to explain those or answer any questions I can. As always, thank you so much for checking out the videos. I do appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. And until next time, we'll see you.